All right, I think we're live. Live, Folk You Zeus here. It's 8 o'clock. I think we're pretty close to right on the head, 8 o'clock. So I think nailed it this time. Yeah, it's great to be here. Houston, Texas is where I'm based, and damn, it's hot. But it's July in Houston. It's pretty typical, mid 90s, humid, and you got window units, so I have to shut the air conditioner off when we're doing this, so it doesn't bleed in and all that. But I'm fine. I'm doing all right. It's been a heck of a couple of weeks. I am just a prelude to before we get into the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is my three songs are better than your three songs. So if you want to hang around for that, please do. Want to just let everybody know that I am heading on the road this week. I'll be gone for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I'll be off. It looks like I won't be able to do YouTube live while I'm gone. In fact, next Sunday I'll be on the road, actually on the road from Effingham to Chicago, driving back from a gig I have in Pocahontas, Illinois, next Sunday at a place called the Fainting Goat. So if you know anybody in that area, and my friends from Greenville will be stopping in, hopefully jamming with me a little bit. Greenville, Illinois, my peeps there. Aaron and Dale and whoever else, Craig might show up, who knows. But looking forward to that. My first stop will be in Indianapolis, Brownsburg, actually, which is a suburb, western suburb of Indianapolis. I got my first official gig, and it kind of official gig in the Indy area Saturday. So I think we got bumped to a later slot, or I got Patrick Zabriskie is going to be. He's a contact of mine. They're a great musician in town there. So we're going to hook up, and he's going to play in between my sets, and maybe we'll jam some for that. So I've got, if anybody's interested in what I'm doing on this tour and beyond, markzeus.com, MARKZEUS, just like you have the Zeus Folk You Zeus. For this podcast, just go directly to my website. I've got a recording that I just released, a full album from Thunderbolts. This in a couple days, within the next couple days, I'm going to put out the acoustic album called "Pardon Me," which is the title song and also the lead song, and so you can go there and you kind of see what the cover looks like, and I'm putting that together. And before I leave town, that's the mission. Before I leave town, to be able to get that off. So that's my stuff. So if anybody's interested in that, you go check it out on markzeus.com, and it'll lead you everywhere to where you want to go. So let's get into this topic. It's kind of provocative. This is going to be kind of fun, but kind of serious. It's about the competition in the arts, the general notion of competition in the arts. My three songs are better than your three songs. I kind of came up with that. I don't know if anybody else came up with that before me, but I remember kind of saying that about a lot of the open mics that I would hit in certain, normally the open mic scene is very, very good, solid community. People are very, accepting and of each other. And it's a, very strong. Everybody backs each other and encourages everybody, which is a positive thing to do at these open mics. But it gets to a certain level to where you go, like, I just remember one time I was in Austin. I was at a place called Cactus, which is part of the University of Texas. It's kind of like their music hall, but it's an actual venue. I was only there the one time. This was back in the 90s, probably 95, 96, as I remember. It's one of the first times I was there. And a buddy of mine that Steve Hepler, and I haven't talked to him in years, but he had moved from Chicago to Austin just the year before, a few months before that. So we hooked up, and he's still checking the scene out, and he had things going or whatever. And he suggested his place, and a beautiful place. It's a great, and I know since then I've known it's a great venue for acoustic music, called the Cactus. But the open mic was kind of weird because it was like everybody entered their name into a bucket, and then they would pick out of the bucket. I'm not actually sure what all the rules were, but it's like, and after about the first 5 or 6 people, the host does like a featured set of about 40 minutes or something in between. Now, this doesn't, I'm sure this probably long gone. It's just at that time. But it was kind of real weird because, everybody's kind of waiting to want to play. Everybody wants to play. You come there and you bring your stuff and you say, I want to show my wares. Um, but yeah, but a lot of the people that went to this place, because it was like, if anybody in Houston knows about the Mucky Duck is a very prestigious venue that has an open mic, and it's it itself, I guess it reflects on the host. The host there is a good friend of mine at the Mucky Duck, and he's very even keeled, doesn't matter. And he has there was another saying that I came up with regarding open mics back in that age, back in the 90s, was that it was, you played 3 songs whether you suck or not. That was the mantra. Doesn't matter. You sign on a list, yeah, you get 3 songs, doesn't matter whether you suck or not. That's it. It's an open mic. It's open to everybody whether you suck or not. So that was a kind of a mantra that I carried on. And I think my buddy Wayne has the same kind of thing. He's like, he has his opinions, who he thinks sucks or not, but, as we all do. But we're not going to be there as gatekeepers to an open mic. And going back to the story with the cactus the what seemed to be a nice enough guy, but he decided, you've got people waiting in line. Some people weren't even going to get to play, because it was a draw kind of a thing. Like, you're a winner, bingo, you won, you're up or something. So usually you pick 2 ahead or something where you kind of know. So so me and Steve and I both put our names into the hat, whatever. And it was like, after about 4 or 5 people went, it was like, oh, now it's time for the big show. The host gets up and does his thing. He was all right. And but hell, it's like, there's still like 20 people sitting waiting to play. So, after about, he does his show, it's kind of like, all right, and he pulls another 1 or 2. It's kind of, Steve, let's get the hell out of here. This is like, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for that particular open mic at that time. And ever so often you run into these things where there's good quality, solid players, but there is like a certain amount of competition. And the one thing over the years I've kind of learned or developed, at least in my opinion, is that competition does not belong in the arts. There should be no competition. And that goes, and I've mentioned this before in other podcasts, if you follow me at all, that, even in, they'll have these classical piano competitions where it's a big, huge thing and people practice, get to, and everybody's real good. And you can't tell me that one person is going to be that much better than the next person, but that one person that wins gets all the, a bunch of accolades. Maybe the second place gets good, but it goes to a lot of these different contests and that to where, who are the judges? And we'll talk about that later. The gatekeepers, the people that make the decisions as to who is good and who isn't, and who takes the cake and who doesn't, So, it kind of going back. I'm going back in history. I remember when TV started doing those kinds of shows. There was a show called Star Search, which eventually evolved into all these other shows that we see today. But Star Search was like that, it was like the thing. It was like, we're looking for the next big star. And they go through and you go jump through the hoops, you audition, you do this, and you get to a certain point, and it's a big competition, and for me, it was like kind of, okay. At that point, I'm a musician. I'm a decent musician that's kind of out there playing. Some people like me, probably some people don't, but these kind of big spectacle kind of shows were, they did well for a while, and then they kind of fizzled out. But my favorite competition show was back in the 70s, was the Gong Show. The Gong Show. What was the guy's name? Barris? I forgot the guy's first name. Steve Barris? I forgot what his first name. But he was a great host. He'd get, everybody, he'd kind of like, and it'd be like, if somebody was kind of sucking, they would hit the gong or something. But it was like, it was all in good spirit, to where everybody knew. There'd be some good people playing, and there'd be some weird ass. That's where the unknown comic, I remember the guy with the bag over his head and that kind of thing. So it was meant to be entertainment on itself, based around this fake show, kind of this gong show, this kind of fake thing. But it was kind of real in a way. It's a kind of had a reality to it. Uh, but it was if anybody's has never seen the Gong Show or no heard about it, you might want to look it up. I'm sure they'll have YouTube uh, bits from the Gong Show or even full shows of the old shows. Um, so that was one of that was back in the day, about the same time that Star Search was going. So I mean, the Gong Show was my show, as you can imagine, if anybody knows me. So you had shows like that, and then I remember back in the '80s, I was on a show. A friend of mine had connections in Nashville with a show called "You Can Be a Star," which is very obviously very much like that. But these are all country artists. It was a Nashville country thing. It was at the new right then. It was when they had the first incarnation of the new Grand Old Opry, the Opry complex, the big complex. So they just had opened that a year before that or something. I forgot what year this was. Years passed me by. But it was so it was my friend Curtis. He had his band. I think it was, I forgot which band he had together, but we had excellent players. And I actually wasn't part of the band, but the guy that they wanted, Jimmy Bartholomew, was going to be, was their singer. He couldn't make the gig, so they called me. So I went up there and did this with them, and it was crazy. It was a crazy trip, and we had some fun, and it was kind of hosted by some like mid-level, like old guy, mid-level, old guy meaning younger than me now, probably at that time when I'm thinking about it, when I was in my early 30s, young upper 20s. I forgot what age I was at the time. But it was right around then, so I was out working so I was working, and then this was I forgot, it was on a Monday. We all worked on Saturday night or Sunday. We left Sunday, pulled in late Sunday for the Monday show. And anyway, we lost, bottom line, to make a long story short, we were great, but we lost to Miss Atlanta. Miss Atlanta came out there and shook her butt and sang, I don't remember what she sang, 2 more bottles of wine or something. I think it was something like that. And but we had 2 original songs that we did, and they were pretty good. We did well. But anyway, so it's one of those things where who are the gatekeepers? They had judges, these people that had been stars, or either, I don't want to say washed up or anything, but people that had been along the way. They don't get the big stars in there because they can't afford to put them on this. So, but bottom line, I've had experiences with these shows over the years, and I'll fast forward to what's going on today, and shows like The Idol. I think it's called the American Idol. I think it's American Idol, and then now they have like a European Idol, or then they have a Chinese Idol, Japanese, Indian Idol. I don't know. So they've got different. So all the countries kind of piggybacked off of that. Now they're kind of going for that. And then there's a voice show that like the best voice or something is supposed to be. And then there's the masked voice, I believe it's called, masked. The guys, people come out and sing with masks on. Or something, and then you're supposed to guess who they are. I don't watch these shows. I won't watch these shows. I just think, I kind of get the premise, and it's kind of that looks stupid. And then there's like, then what's going to be next? I think there's going to be the muffled voice. There's going to be okay, who make out who that is or something. So that anyway, I digress. So you have all these performance-based contests. Going on, and it's and it's, they try to make them entertaining, but nothing is as entertaining as the Gong Show. So you got to look up the Gong Show and check that out, because in general, this is kind of whenever there's, and I was going to get into this more later, but now's a good time, is to say whenever there's winners, there's losers. And in the arts, if you've crafted, we talked about crafts and arts, if you've gotten to a point to where you really worked at it and you got it and you developed it, you got a good arrangement for this and that, you think it's great and stuff like that, and it just, for some reason, you might be better. Who the hell knows? Who the hell should really care? If it's entertaining, if it's great, if it's if it's well put together and there's been effort and the whole schmear, there should be no this guy. Okay, this guy is against. Okay, it's come down to this guy against this guy, or this girl against this guy, or these two girls for the idol of the year. Um, and everybody votes or whatever at home. I think they still do that. They still vote for the idols, and that one that gets the most votes. So it's like and it kind of that happens locally too. So I'm going to go and switch gears a little bit because it's like, okay, that's seems to be on a grand level and it's for entertainment. Big networks are doing it. A lot of people are making lots of money and advertisers and all that stuff. And there's a spectacle, big show. But more locally, and even not even locally, but even internationally, but on a more of a song based level, there's all these songwriter contests now that are popping up. I mean, obviously, I'm on Facebook, and I'm known as a songwriter. So coming in, Google finds or Meta, finds out that you're a songwriter and you're sharing songwriter stuff and you're Googling and whatever. All that comes, and then all of a sudden, all these songwriters contests are coming across my feed on Facebook and on the Google and on the YouTube and all that. So, but I remember that my main experience was when the first songwriter contest I entered. I've entered very, very few, and I haven't for many, many, many years. But back in the 70s, I remember it was the first one. And I'm not sure if it was the first songwriter contest on that level, but Billboard magazine. If you don't know what Billboard magazine is, it's where they put all the charts, where the music charts are, and that. So it's like an industry magazine, kind of. If you are in the recording industry or the music industry in general, you subscribe to Billboard and you find out what's going on. But they did and I don't know if they still do or whatever, but they did for a while. Songwriter, and I think it was the first one that I participated in, and I wound up, putting a song in there, and then eventually I got an honorable mention. So it was big. Yeah, it was big news. I got this at the time, whatever. And I think the guy that won the whole thing was the guy from was Daryl Hall, I believe, from Hall and Oates. I think that was his first entry, whatever kind of a thing. So I think I remember that. But either song I put in, looking back, it wasn't a very good song. It's kind of folksy and because I'm a folk singer, and then had a certain groove to it. But I look back at it, it's kind of like there's tons of songs I've written since then that would blow that away in my opinion. Like I said, it's all about who knows. Maybe that song just hit somebody that was one of the judges, or maybe everybody got an honorable mention, which is a whole another political way to kind of achieve what would you say acceptance for a contest. So if you have this Billboard contest, it's kind of like, oh, let's just give everybody an honorable mention. It's like I really don't know. No, I believe there were just X amount of honorable mentions, and there was first prize, second prize, third prize, and then honorable mentions. So that's my first thing with that. And then from there, man, it just got to be all of a sudden now there's all these, and I don't even want to start naming them. I was thinking about it. Should I start naming them? And it's like, nah, I'm not going to bother with that. But they're all over the place. These songwriter contests, enter here. And it's like this and that. And here's what you got to do. And most of them, you have to pay some money to, you got to pay whatever it is, $10, $15. I say, so there's somebody making some money off of these things, which is another thing too, is to kind of like to work off of that competition and say, well, I'm going to be, how can I do it? I could put together this contest, get everybody give me $15, and it's hire a couple judges that have got a little bit of a name. This guy he co-wrote a hit that made number 10 here last year, whatever. Those kinds of people are basically the judges, or the people that maybe got lucky and had it's like, or if if it was a a major contest like that, you would expect Bob Dylan to be a judge, or Carole King, or I mean, it's like, and there have been some contests that have bigger names like that, and those kind of turned my head and said, okay, well, at least maybe there's something to it. But in general, I mean, I avoid them, and I encourage people to avoid these major contests. There are some contests that have a concrete achievement built into them, which uh, if you get in the first 5 or 10, you get to perform on a big stage, this and that, and that at least is something that has that there's it's hooked into a better organization that's able to place you into these situations that, as a performing artist, you're trying to get to that, to where you're going to have better stages to play on, uh, more audience. So this is, it goes to the question of why do people get involved with that? If you're doing it for that purpose, I can understand it. I would just say, be careful, make sure that you're not forking over money to something that's like a raffle. You're basically buying raffle tickets, because your song that you put in there is probably as good as 100 songs that are being, at least to a level, you could argue production level. It shows some knowledge of musicality and tonality. I mean, it's like you're not singing out of tune or whatever. If you're on these submissions, so there's all these little possibilities of evaluating something, saying, yeah, this is acceptable. This. I mean, if you could, like, same thing when you're choosing songs to be played on the air. A DJ's listening to it. He said, "Well, this stuff, that's weird, man. I don't know what that label even dealt with that, or whatever." So, I mean, there's certain parameters that you can build, so you're going to fit within that. So there's and to that level, you're buying a solid raffle ticket where don't bother. So you have to be your own judge many, many times to be able to get to say, well, I'm to that level where I think I can compete for this if I need to go into the competition. And going back to my beginning, it says competition does not belong in the arts. Okay, so if you're audition, if handle it as like an audition, I really want to play that stage, that festival stage that is the first 5 players, like that, like the Kerrville thing. I could see, people do that, and it's called New Folk, and people put it in, and they just don't. It is like a first, and they'll do a competition, and there'll be judges, and there'll be kind of peers, people that I know have been judges that are performing, songwriters and musicians, that will be the judges mostly, and sometimes music buyers and that. So there are certain, it's like, okay, but the main prize is that you get to play on the big stage, or whatever, on the Treadgill stage. I think now they put it on. There's like a big show that they put on. So those are things too you got to take into. You're not just throwing your $15 or $25, $50 away. And you never, like I said, to buy the raffle tickets, you might as well play the lottery, and then if you win the lottery, then you could buy any gig you want in the world. You can rent the hall, and you could pay people to show up, and you could pay people to scream and yell for you, and like you want more. So who's to say? So yeah, I mean, we're looking at, okay, now going into things like the Battle of the Bands. I have a little anecdotal story. Remember back in the 80s, this was 80s. Oh, no, I don't know if it was like late 80s, early 90s. I think it was late 80s. Our band A to Z, we knew this guy who told us, hey, there's this Battle of the Bands. We're looking at it, we're saying, we're at that point, we're seasoned enough musicians. We had really great players in this band. I mean, we were good. We worked all the time. and we were working in different bands too. So this is like kind of like our all-star kind of band, A to Z. You know, so these really good players, good singers. We did it. We had, we had great arrangements to songs that either were covers or originals, and we had released a EP thing at the time. So we were, little. I don't want to say hot, but we were, good, solid, really good players. And you were thinking about it, says, the Battle of the Bands. That's, because mostly Battle of the Bands is like for kids or amateurs, but this was kind of, they were trying to make it more on a high level. So we entered it and we did it. And I think we killed it. I mean, we did great. And the wound up, the people that won it, won the thing were, at the time, the biggest band at the time was U2. That was when U2 was really hot and coming up, I guess, late 80s. And this band kind of cloned a little bit. They sounded like that. They had that when we were watching. They said these guys sound like U2, kind of a thing. So this seems like those guys kind of won. They maybe had the most current sound, or you don't know how you're going to be judged sometimes. Is it for musicianship? Is it for the shtick that you have, the spectacle, whatever it is? So, you got to know what it's nice to know exactly what's being looked for. And sometimes it's very broad, musicianship, originality, blah, 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 like whatever it is. So, sellability, who knows what, how people are judging, and each different judge has their criteria. And so you get kind of stuck in that, and it's kind of like, well, okay. And you get kind of caught up and it says, boy, okay, we're going to win this damn thing. Yeah. But I got sucked into a couple battle bands through the years. I think that was the last Battle of Bands I did, as I recall, then there's, and be careful of that too. There's always pay to play things, and you buy into like just being a battle of the bands. You got to pay some money, or don't ever do that. And be aware of. I mean, if you're putting a lot of work into doing a show, even if you're a novice or on a level where you don't consider yourself professional yet. If you're jumping through a lot of hoops and doing a lot of things, and all of a sudden they want money, or they're not going to compensate you for certain expenses maybe that you entailed putting the show on or whatever. It's a lot of scams. It's the music business. There's tons of scams. There's always somebody going to want to try to make money off of your dream to become the next star, wherever, whatever, on any level there, from Star Search and the Idols and the Battle of the Bands and the songwriter contest, the big breaks. Everybody needs their big break. So, I mean, to have an even flow, don't let yourself get too hepped up on one thing. The one thing you should have is the vision of your art. And I'll bring all arts into this, finally coming into this conversation, because there are visual art contests, and exhibitions where they'll the blue ribbon and whatever, that kind of thing, art and all that. And obviously film, there's all these film festivals where they'll have the best at this and like that, and all the accolades that go with Academy Awards and all that at the highest levels. Whatever it is, TV, radio, there are certain things that, the world is based on, most of the world is based on competition. We've been put into this situation. We could talk politics about, capitalism, is about, competing. Companies compete for you to buy their cola. And then so this guy comes up with a better cola, supposedly a better cola. And it's like, or whatever, whatever it is, some razor blade. No, our razor blade. So that's the concept, is that competition creates a better product, brings down prices and all that, so from that economics. But in art, what does competition do? It just it artificially inflates the value of something without any concrete uh, attributes. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like this guy had this idea, this guy had this idea, this gal had this idea, this gal had this idea. So we're all, everybody has these ideas and they're a little different. Everything's a little different. There's no way to really compare them. And now we're going to pick the best one. And that is insane. So there's insanity to all this that I'm talking about. You could take any of them. So it might as well be the Gong Show, because the Gong Show was insane. It kind of played off of the insanity of all this, and it was just like fun. Let's have fun with this. It's a contest, but it's like nobody cares. Whatever. It's like, we're not trying to really pick anybody it's going to be the next big star or anything. We're just going to have fun with this. So. And, like I said, in visual arts and theater and film and all the other arts, there's all this. But the bottom line, some of the best artists were never won any of those contests, or never would. I always say it would, like for the American Idol or The Voice, especially on something like American Idol, would someone like a Janis Joplin be the winner? Where and look back and they say, well, yeah, she's one of the greatest popular and blues and whatever put around her. Even within ourselves, we say, well, what was the best album? What was the best? Who was the best singer? Who was the greatest guitar player? Who was the best keyboard player? Whatever, all that stuff. I mean, we talk about it just in passing, but when you start making it out to be like this is it, we're gonna so a lot of the great artists that came up because of their art. And I would argue that in music and pop music, there was a lot of art. There were people going out and finding people and saying, this is unique. There was a time when unique individuals and acts were plucked up and developed into pop stars. Now it's kind of backwards, where it's kind of like, we're going to find the best pop person, the one that looks the best and stuff like that. And now we're going to start plugging in hits and try to make them into something special. So back then it was kind of like, let's find those unique bits, those little, people that had that's something different. So I think in popular music, we're losing a lot of that. And it goes back to you could go take a look at my podcast on when I said the SOS, the same old shit. So the publishers are wanting to keep pushing the same old songs that have been listened for years and years and years and years, because they're making money off them, because they hold the publishing, and they get, every time it gets streamed, played, or whatever. And obviously the streaming's not making much, but when it gets them to 1 million streams, there's a return. So that's where people are going into this kind of a mode right now. It's kind of like, a lot of new music isn't breaking through. It's there, it's in the grassroots. We know it. And that's why we're in this renaissance, grassroots renaissance, because there's so many of us and we're all on this level. There's not enough of gigs for everybody really to rise up, and we have all the people that are kind of sucked up into this idol voice, masked voice, and all those shows that people will watch those shows and expect this, and they're listening to the classics, classic rock stations and the country legends and whatever, the regurgitation of every musical genre you can think of. So breaking in with some new music has to happen from the grassroots. And there's not a lot of people digging into those grassroots. You have to kind of break out yourself. You have to keep pushing. So I'm not there to try and grab this ring. Okay. I consider myself an artist, a musical artist, and I write songs, I arrange them, I produce them, I'm honing them out, and I want to get them out there so that people can hear them. That's the bottom line. It's the bottom line. If I'm able, and I try to make a meager living off of playing gigs, and I get on the road a little bit and try to get my stuff out there. And as it goes, I mean, I'm not the best at marketing. I'll admit that. So whatever, I do the best I can with what I got. But my main focus is create that art, and that's what an artist does. An artist. I remember my brother once told me, and he might, if he's watching, whatever. But I remember he said, "Man, you got that great album." This is when I first released "Bridging the Gap," and he loved a couple of the songs on there. He says, "Man, this album sounds great." And yeah, I thought it was a good album, solid. But I was thinking about the songs that I've been writing, and then the next thing I'm going to do. I did that. I released it. We had a big party to release it, and then boom, he said, you got to try to get in and get somebody to promote it properly and market it and do that. So, that's where labels come in, and that's the value of being plugged into the machinery, that star maker machinery. If you can do that, if you can't, keep pursuing the art. I know people that get stuck on one project or whatever, or one thing they say it, and other people will say, "Well, I'm going to give it 5 years. I'm going to dedicate 5 years of my life now to try to be a star, a rock star, or something, or to try to develop a full-time musician career or something." And after 5 years, they quit, and they go back to their day job or whatever. So and that's that's valid. That's the way they wanted to do it. And maybe there's still, those people I knew that did that. I don't even know them anymore because I don't know where they're at. But maybe they're still making music in their basement. They're still creating their art. Maybe 20 years from now, somebody will discover that there's some tapes in there or whatever, And like we talked about Emily Dickinson before, it's kind of like, yeah, she was a poet. Everybody kind of knew she was a poet, and she wrote letters, and she was a very great writer. Everybody recognized her as a good writer. But nobody knew about the scope of what she wrote until after she had passed away, and all this started coming out and started, and then people had volumes of it. And that's just one example. And there's, I talked about Nick Drake before, and some songwriter that died young. He had like 3 albums, but now there's lots of people that are starting to cover his stuff. They have the respect. They used one song for a TV commercial, which doesn't mean it's great, but I mean, just the exposure. You never know. I mean, I could die and leave all this music, and hopefully somebody will keep it going a little bit, and I'll have some friends that'll pass it around, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this song will fit this, and it's like, and I'm dead 20 years, and I'm making all kinds of money. So yeah, it's shit, whatever, man. But it's about, if there's one brass ring, it's about the attainment of your artistic vision. It's about the vision that you have as an artist, and it doesn't have to be very concrete vision. It can be just my vision is to be able to explore and take my music and reach out and pull in different ideas and styles and bring it into my own and gather enough to create my own sound that is unique. So, and we keep working at that. It's never static. I mean, we talk about the Rolling Stones, how they kind of developed. They still sounded like the Stones, but there was always a little twist. They always put in a little twist into it. And they were just great hook writers, and they were great pop songwriters. So, and I'm getting off into another tangent, which happens often with this kind of a program, you might say. So I'm going just following my notes here, talking again about the gatekeepers. Now, who are they? When you have a contest or you have any kind of competition, there's always somebody that's going to make the decision as to who's the best and who gets included, and that's basically the bottom line: who gets included and who gets excluded. Like I said, the winners and the losers. There's always, in any competition, like sports is competitive. There's rules. There's boom. This is what you got to do if you're going to win. This is exactly what you got to do. All right, this is it. And then there's those games at the end where it's kind of like they say, well, no, you didn't win because you get wrong call, bad call, this and that. All right, but 99.9% of the time, there's a clear-cut winner, there's a clear-cut loser. You don't go into that competition understanding that is. If it's a one-on-one, there is going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, you know. There's going to be ties in certain sports for whatever, for specific games, but at the end of the year, there's the big competition for the championship, and it goes to the end, and for the best part, the rules that define it. So it's who's the winners and losers. So, and obviously we're into very hugely subjective criteria to determine who's going to win. And this is the rub. This is the huge problem. And now you're going to have to depend on highly expert opinion. And who are those people? Who should those people be? Should that be that songwriter that co-wrote a song with one of the big songwriters in Nashville, and they had a minor hit with it, so now they're on that they could be part of that club, or whatever, or they've been on the road for 30 years and whatever, and they've been around the block, and they've had a couple successful albums or whatever. So who are these people? And the question I'm asking, are these people educators? Which I would imagine that educators might be the one. So if you're going into the classical piano contest, remember we were talking about that. Who's the best? The people that are on. It's not always but it's that they do include teachers, people that work with a lot of different people, and they evaluate because there's a little more objective evaluation, and it gets to be where there's like, okay, how well was this? They're given specific pieces that mandatory pieces that needed to be played, or and beyond the free form that's allowed. So there's certain moves that you have to make, just like it's skating, like in if you're looking skating competition, figure skating. Okay. There's certain moves that you have to make in your routine. You have to execute whatever I'm not a skater. But you have to, the double turn, the triple turn, the turn and a half, or whatever, those kinds of moves. You have to, jumps, and everything has to be, gymnastics kind of same way. So they've evolved into a system of this now. If the arts, and I believe, like I said, in those classical piano competitions, they've gotten to a point where there is enough, but there's still going to be a subjective judgment in the end for it. Go to these battle of the bands, and there's nothing to go on. It's just like, who excites this person the most, or whatever. Songwriter contests. If you got a really great songwriter, if a Guy Clark, or somebody in that vein, that with that kind of experience, it's like that have written tons of songs. They could look at form. They could look at like just a little things that go into developing an arrangement. An arrangement is its own thing. It's not actually the song. Because you could take a really great song and arrange it in several different ways. So, are you adding that? Are you talking about the arrangement? Is that part of the the evaluation process? So, the more defined. So, if you are getting involved in any of these, look for that. Look at something that has a good rule, like set of rules that this is what you're going to be judged on. So going in that these are the actual criteria that will be. That you need to achieve, or you need to be evaluated on. So educators, but normally, no, there's no educators involved. It's not the guy that teaches guitar. It's the guy that plays some guitar, maybe, whatever. It's his student, and it's been around a little bit, maybe, and maybe you can have educators in that, and you can mix them up, but yeah. In my judgment, I still think that when it comes to competing in the arts, there's always going to be, and this is the next thing, is that there's always going to be losers. Whenever, like we said, in baseball, football, basketball, hockey, team sports, and golf and whatever, all that stuff. There's objective. You didn't do it. You took more shots than that guy, so that guy wins because it's the fewest amount of shots that wins in golf. Where the most points wins in this one or whatever. But there is rules. And you follow the rules, you went all the way along, and you got more points than the other guy. So that's it. You win, he loses. You didn't get as many points as the other guy. You lose. So you go into that. If we go into the arts with that mantra to say, okay, I know I might, lose. I'm going to try my best, do some, but I'll respect the fact that the person that beat me, did it better than me. And if you go in with that mantra, you're going to slit your wrists. You're going to, as an artist, you're going to put your heart and soul into something, and you're going to eventually just say, become devastated if you're constantly losing. But if there's one thing I can instill with this podcast is you're not a loser. You're never a loser if you're participating in the arts. If you're truly being an artist, if you're a person that's out there really working at it and doing your best to have your craft to contribute to your art. So in order to be artists, we talked about it before. You have to have a certain amount of dexterity and practice you put in and everything. It's like to get to that point to where what you visualize is what you can achieve. What you hear in your head, you can create that music that is in your head. If you don't have the tools or the skills, you're not going to get there. So if you have that vision and you don't have the tools and skills, what do? You continually develop the tools and skills to get to the point to where, now I can get that. Or you collaborate, find other people that have those tools and skills that you don't have. And like great bands get together, and certain people have certain talents within those bands to be able to create it, to make the creation come to volition. So the fact of even thinking about losers, because when you start thinking of winners, I won that contest. It's like, okay, well, who lost? Everybody else or whatever. Everybody else is a loser. You're the winner, or maybe there was a second place, and that second place person is just not as good a songwriter as that first place person, and a third place person not as good a songwriter as the first two, and or whatever, or that song if it's a specific song and all that. And it's like, and I say, I've got the award that I was issued for a song of the year. Okay, it was in actually a contest that was voted on. It's kind of like the Grammys. I can appreciate the Grammys because the people that are in the Recording Academy. The Grammys are a result of the National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences, called NARAS. That's the organization, NARAS, and every year they have the NARAS is the continuing corporation, you might say, and that is their yearly show that they have, and they give out those awards, and it's a big deal, and it takes a long time. I was a member of NARAS for a few years, and I got to vote on the Grammys a couple times, and they'll send you first a form. They said, do you want to nominate anyone? So every member of NARAS, and there's specific criteria to become a member of NARAS. There's this is what you have to achieve. You have to, and at the time I was able to achieve it because there was a local regional distributor that picked up my CD Bridging the Gap. So he's kind of snuck in and says, okay, well, I have some major distribution. I have an official distribution outlet that's getting into the stores and all that. So whatever it is, I was able to get in there. And once you're in, kind of like, and then I've done other things recording wise and engineering and all that, but that was the way to get. So everybody in NARAS can come in and nominate people. Then they collect it and they come back. Well, here are the people that were most nominated in all these categories. And I'll give you a list of 15, 20 in each category. Then you go in and select. You can select I don't know, 3, 4. I forgot what the number is. And you select. You say, okay, here's what I think, and then it comes back, and then finally you get a final ballot and say, well, here's the 5 that most people after the second. So they've honed it down to that. So it isn't just somebody in some back office at Naris is coming in. Hey, this guy, slipped me a few bucks, so let's put him on the ballot. So no, this is kind of done on the up and up. I believe on the up and up. There's problems with Naris and all that, and like there is with any large organization. But they do a pretty good job of that. And the award that I got from there is from the Texas Music Award. At the time, they were actually the people that ran the thing. I knew them, but I didn't win it because of that, because they had a similar situation where membership nominated and voted. So there were certain members that nominated this specific song, and it got to a point where there's enough of backing. There's some politics involved with people wanting to talk it up and saying, hey, you got to vote for this. So I had a couple friends that were really highly into promoting it, and they got to a point to where then it gets into, they give you snippets of the songs, and then every member votes on it, says, I think that's the best one, that's about whatever it is. And so it came out to this. So it's a little better than just like buying your raffle ticket, $25 into a songwriting contest, and then getting a plaque later and saying, okay, well, these 5 people decided they're going to make you an honorable mention or whatever, so there are different levels of it. So just be careful. Don't want to see anybody get ripped off. I'm sure you don't want to get ripped off. And I mean, we get ripped off enough in this world. We don't need to have our art demeaned and called a loser. So like I said, go back to the original theme, 3 songs, whether you suck or not. You're at an open mic, you play 3 songs. They don't have to be your best, even, whatever, three to fit together, and they're great, man. It's all beautiful. And so even if you suck, it's beautiful, beautiful thing. So bottom line, to answer the question, my 3 songs are my 3 songs better than your 3 songs? The answer is no. My 3 songs are not better than anybody's 3 songs. And I think we'll probably end it there. Hopefully you enjoyed this little segment of Folk You Zeus. Remember, next 2 weeks, I will be out of town. Next Sunday, I will actually physically be on the road, or at this time at 8 p.m. on next Sunday. And I cannot, YouTube will not, unless you have 1,000 followers, you can't do a phone live. It's weird. You can on your app or whatever, in order to do an app presentation live. So I might be doing some Facebook stuff along the line. If you aren't on my Facebook, a lot of politics on my Facebook page. So if you agree with it, great. If you don't, you're welcome to voice your opinion, as well as we're always welcome to voice your opinion here on the chat. And that's what I want to try to get going once we get this momentum going into discussing. And what we're doing is discussing issues, concepts, just general discussions about art, music, and culture. We might delve directly into the cultural, phenomenon and talk about that, from an artist's standpoint. Try to keep an open mind, free mind. We promote free speech and free expression. And I'm not sure when I'll see you next here. It'll probably be in 3 weeks. The 2 weeks I'm not going to be on the YouTube. Like I said, find me on Facebook. Go to markzeus.com. If you're up in the Midwest area where I'm going to be in the Indianapolis area, Pocahontas, Illinois, I'll be there next Sunday. I'll be in Indy area next Saturday, this coming Saturday. Then I'll be up in Chicago area for a few gigs the following week. So check me out. And don't forget, go on Bandcamp. I'm markzeus.bandcamp.com. That's a great place, man. It's where I'm going to eventually have all of my stuff. I released the Thunderbolts sequel album a couple weeks ago. So go there and buy it. And there's going to be my next album is going to be out in a couple days, I think. So I'm backing up on some stuff here. I've been trying to catch up. and that's going to be out soon. So hopefully you can go there and check out that stuff. Even if you don't want to buy it, go listen to it. The main thing is to listen to it. And I'll see you next time. Have a good one.